So I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos recently, and it's become increasingly obvious to me that play and earn games need to evolve or they're going to die. Rightfully so, because the conventional idea of what play and earn games are is just fundamentally broken. And the way it's being implemented in many games currently is just completely destined to fail. So let's address some of the primary criticisms and kind of figure out what's going on.
I've been covering crypto in gaming, NFTs in gaming, and the metaverse for a few months now, and I've been trying to go into it with an open mind and look at the biggest projects and look at the upcoming projects and play them if there is anything playable, which rarely is the case.
So unsurprisingly, it turns out gameplay really matters a lot when it comes to making a game that's really fun. So this is one of many areas where I think Big Time is actually doing it correctly versus what the industry is doing. I definitely agree gameplay is super important, and as we'll see going forward, a lot of this really stems from a model that actually works, that can be play and earn related, is a model that starts with a really fun game that people actually want to play. So stuff like hype trailers, stuff like rendered footage, selectively edited stuff, it doesn't really prove much. There's a lot of that out there. The gamers have been burned for years from horrible, like hypey trailers. Like just look at something like Cyberpunk. Hours and hours of unedited stream footage on Twitch is what Big Time has. Okay, so what you're seeing right now is edited gameplay for the purposes of this video, but the reality is go to Twitch, go to Big Time, hours and hours of unedited footage over there. So Big Time, right off the bat, we're doing things differently. Okay, we're putting ourselves out there and saying, hey, here's the game, people are playing it, 20,000 people in the alpha right now.
I'm not against this idea so long as the idea is actually good and has some actual tangible value to it. And in my coverage, most projects don't really have any substance, and they're never by AAA game developers. They're not by people who you would have some kind of trust that they're going to be able to deliver on something that moves the genre forward, right? The genre of gaming and not the genre of cryptocurrency and speculating on gaming. And it seems like a lot of the projects are just built on FOMO, fear of missing out, and hype for making money and not about the game, which is always my position. Game first, monetization, cryptocurrency, etc., play to earn, whatever it's going to be, very distantly second. And unfortunately, most of the projects are just speculate on making money first, and most of the people that are involved in it don't care whether the game's even going to come out or be good. And the games that do have some form of gameplay at the moment are just not that impressive. They feel like games from your browser from 15 years ago, and that is going to change in my opinion. At the moment it seems like everyone's running on a 56k modem, but we're over here in the AAA gaming industry playing on fiber.
This is something where, once again, like, we're just in full agreement. Kira makes a whole lot of sense here, and that's something where, again, Big Time nails that in spades. Huge team, 80 plus people, they're constantly hiring even more people and growing. And the best part is, like, their core team, and these are not just average Joes, right? These are some of the decision makers at those studios that were there for very key moments with very key games. We're talking Electronic Arts, we're talking Activision Blizzard, we're talking Riot Games, we're talking Epic Games, like, just the list goes on. Whereas a different game, for example, something like Earth 2, we'll throw that out there, right? Something like Earth 2, you immediately know they have no idea what they're talking about when they're talking about the metaverse, no loading screens, Red Dead Redemption graphics, the whole deal, and then he's over there building an eco-sim. Like, it's just all over the place. There's no clear goals, there's no clear roadmap, and it just shows a lack of understanding of game development. The number one things that matter when we're talking about an MMO action RPG is performance, it's server stability, and it's things like that. And so, for example, from the beginning, we built a very unique and gorgeous looking art style, but one that's performant, one where the minimum specs for the game can be low enough where it has mass market appeal. Because even something like Earth 2, even if they completely crushed it out of the park somehow with technology that doesn't exist unless your name is Shane Isaac, even when you get to that point, you're going to need like a $10,000 PC to run the game. So it's just something where their vision, or games like it, like, I'll give you a slightly less comical example, is something like Mirandus that Gala Games is doing. Now, I think the team at Mirandus is more real and more experienced, and I'm sure they're going to actually make a game. But if you actually look at what Mirandus wants to do, it is incredibly ambitious what they're shooting for, and they're very early in the process. And it's just something where, on paper, it sounds cool, but when you know enough about game development and what actually matters for things to work, you quickly realize there's a lot of hurdles there, and like I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole right now because they just haven't proved enough, and they're doing something extremely ambitious. Whereas Big Time's doing something ambitious, but it's doing something very realistic. We've taken on one or two or three very specific problems, and we've said if we solve these problems, the game will be a success because it's been built from the ground up to be a very realistic, solvable problem, and the team and the funding is there to really execute on that.
People are putting money into these things because they believe in the future of the products and not what they currently are. Most people are pretty short-sighted with stuff like this. They just want to make money from it. But a lot of people that are in the space for the good of it, at least from the ones I've been speaking to, people who have been in crypto for a long time and see crypto gaming being a big thing, they're interested in the future of when it catches up and what it can do there. And that's why they're invested in the space and not what it currently is, which does seem like there is no reason, because you are going back like 10, 15 years with what these games have compared to what you have already in mainstream gaming and even in indie games, in my opinion.
So basically everything you mentioned there really stems from these Ponzi hype FOMO models, right? Where everybody's just there to make money, and the game, if it is there, is really just a game that could have been competing with Neopets back in 2005. As soon as you strip that away and you say, let's start with a AAA game that's really fun, all of that kind of goes away. So we've said, well, traditional gaming, kind of the gold standard right now, is you have a free-to-play game with optional in-game cosmetics that are not pay-to-win. And then, yeah, you have some pay-to-win games, but obviously we prefer the not pay-to-win games. Well, what if we make those cosmetics into NFTs and we made it an optional process where you're able to put those on the blockchain? What if we created a marketplace where you're able to sell those in-game cosmetics for real money, something similar to like CSGO skins? And yeah, I know, you can immediately be like, well, why do we need the blockchain? Just do it with a standard database, blah, blah, blah. We're not really going to agree on that. I think the big picture there is this is step one of many, where ultimately you end up with something like a metaverse, something like games being able to pool their assets together in a way that's interoperable. Big Time's not claiming to do any of that because, again, the technology's not there yet. We're probably 5 to 10 years away from that. But we do see it as kind of step one, and we're happy to handle step one. So that said, we do believe in digital ownership. We do see it as a value add to give players the ability to take the $190 billion that they spent last year on video games and get that value back when they're ready to move on to a different game, things like that. So, maybe you disagree, but that's our vision for it, and we do see it as something that's just inevitable. It's coming. Let's at least do it correctly. So to us, this really makes sense. It's also important to note that we have a seamless setup process. And so there's a world where you can literally play the game, have fun, buy cosmetics, and not have to ever interact with the blockchain or a crypto wallet or anything like that. That's how seamless everything is. That's one of the core problems Big Time decided to tackle. Now, that being said, the secondary layer to the game is a play and earn economy. So there is an in-game token designed to be used in-game, although to be fair, in-game currencies have been a thing for decades, and it's going to be seamless enough where it's essentially just an in-game currency. And there's an ecosystem that uses land NFTs, we do have land, and utility NFTs like armories and forges, because the core game loop for players engaging in the play and earn side is this kind of crafting side of the game, which revolves around farming cosmetic NFT drops, which everyone will be able to theoretically farm, although the drop rate will be low. And then they take those and they farm the in-game token and they gather other recipe requirements and they're able to bring them into their space, which is the land NFT, and upgrade those and customize those NFTs. And that would be a paid service offered to other players. Again, nothing's pay to win. It's all cosmetic, and all of that's completely optional. And the success is entirely contingent on the success of the game. That's kind of the big picture, is we have this free-to-play side where players come in, they're playing an amazing game, and then there's this secondary layer that is absolutely secondary to the whole thing, where, well, we do have a way for you to upgrade and customize cosmetics. That's done, peer-to-peer using an in-game token, and you're paying other players real money to do that. In addition, the NFTs themselves, the way you would go about buying them is you're not buying them from the developer, you're buying them on the marketplace from someone who went out and farmed it in-game. And there is limited supplies of stuff, so, don't get me wrong, balancing an economy is difficult. That is a challenge that we have to execute on. And the specific details about the exact stuff with crafting and like the exact numbers and drop rates, that's not public right now. So it's entirely reasonable to say, well, yeah, we still have some execution hurdles we need to deal with. But again, it's a very specific problem. We've said, let's just have some in-game cosmetics that are NFTs with limited supply drops, and we create this ecosystem where you're able to craft with them, and that side of the economy is paid. But at the end of the day, it's built on top of this really fun free-to-play game that's just awesome in its own right. And in that sense, you've now created a system where you need players to actually optionally come in and play and enjoy the game to the point where they want to buy skins and they want to upgrade skins. And if that's not there and the game's just not fun, then fine. The player says, well, I had my free-to-play experience, I didn't like it, and they move on. No harm, no foul. Those are the incentives you should want.